Is it easier if I move?
You're fine. We'll do it for you. Chuck's good at this. Maybe. I spoke too soon.
There it is.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And your last name, Whitcomb? Whitcomb. Thank you. Mr. Whitcomb, can you go ahead and raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to provide is true and accurate?
I do.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Christopher Whitcomb, 6714 West 147th Terrace, and that's in Overland Park, Kansas, 66223.
Thank you. And the property that we're about to talk about, is that displayed on the screen properly? Is that the correct property?
Yes,
okay.
Sir.
And we call that property H-KO-04040. I assume you don't call it that.
We do not. We call it down home.
Down home. All right, I like it. Okay. And that is Cassuth County, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Can you describe the current use of the property and any plans you have for the future?
Sure. Currently, that property, as well as the adjacent property to the southeast there, is enrolled in CRP. There's about 30 acres, and that CRP contract goes to 2030. We also use that land for recreational uses, hunting, fishing. We also have maple syrup produced out of that parcel.
And any future plans?
Yeah, future plans, I would like to build a retirement vacation home on this parcel.
And I believe you have 2 exhibits. Would I just pull those up now?
Sure. They don't come into play yet, but we can pull them up and see if they can get them admitted. There's actually 3 exhibits. All 3 of them are emails. One of the emails includes an attachment.
Okay. And these 5 pages, is that the extent of your submissions?
I can't say for sure without scrolling through the pages. I'm sorry.
Can we do that real quick, please?
So that is, those 5 pages are one exhibit, or what I consider one exhibit. That's one email with one attachment. That attachment consists of a red line set of changes that were requested from Summit to their exhibit to the easement agreement, proposed easement agreement. There should be 2 other emails that were submitted that I have a hard copy of here that do not have attachments that should also be requested for submission. Those emails have a subject line, forward 10-day survey notice with our corresponding track number.
Okay. They're working on that. While they're working on that, why don't you go ahead and give us a description of this exhibit, please?
Sure. So this exhibit is the most recent email exhibit, and it is my request to my most recent contact at Contract Land Staff, Nanette Blevins, to have her take some changes we requested to the terribly one-sided easement form agreement, and to have them considered to make the proposed easement agreement fair and equitable.
Thank you. We're still working on it, so we'll circle back to the other two exhibits.
Yes, sir.
But let's just proceed into. Sure. If you hand him his paper copies,
They're marked up, but
then
I've forwarded the emails. I can probably re-forward them if that would be any easier.
okay, they'll double check. Hopefully they find them. We've got plenty of ground to cover, so we'll
Yes,
make
sir.
sure we get it covered.
Okay.
Can we pull that KMZ file back up, please? Thank you. Can you go ahead and give us a general description of boundaries, structures, any other buried infrastructure?
Sure. To my knowledge, there are no buried infrastructure on this parcel. It consists of CRP contracted ground, which is those meadow, grassy areas, and then the remainder of the property is mature timber.
Okay. And the timber, can you give us a description of the timber? I assume some maple, since you're making maple syrup.
Some maple, some oak, some elm.
Okay. Are there any easements on the property?
No, sir, not that I'm aware of.
Any other features or conditions that might not be readily apparent and that might affect the proposed project?
Not that I'm aware of. I don't know what would affect it. There is a stream. You've been asking others regarding streams and waterways. There is a stream that
Other than the Des Moines River?
other than the Des Moines River.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
where's that stream?
So, I'll point it out. It runs approximately from here to here.
Okay, so the northern part, approximately 100 feet south of the proposed project line. As of today, there's a small stream that feeds into the Des Moines River. Is that correct? Oh, more like 300 feet. Okay. All right. How do you access the property?
I'm sorry.
How do you access the property?
If you zoom out, you'll see the adjoining parcel there. Zoom out a little more. There you go. And to the southeast there, you can see a curb cut onto the blacktop,
Okay.
which is one of the crux of the issues we have with this proposed project.
Okay, and so the entryway, is that on your property, or do you have an easement on someone else's property?
No, that is on our property.
Okay, so your property extends all the way down to the, looks like a blacktop?
It's technically a separate tax parcel,
Okay,
but that is one of the big issues we have with this easement agreement.
okay,
And how the definitions thread throughout it.
okay. Well, let's jump in there then. Why don't you describe the specific concerns you have and recommendations for board action to address those concerns?
Sure. The overarching concern I have is the terribly one-sided easement document. I've got to wonder, and I don't know to what extent I can ask the board questions, but I would really be curious to know if the board reviewed, opined, and or blessed the form easement agreement that's being used by Summit. Is that something you all can address?
We cannot address.
Okay,
Sorry.
no problem. So the The way the language reads is, as you all have heard, I'm sure, countless times, there's an access easement. And the way that that's defined, it would apply to not only this entire parcel, but also to the entire parcel to the southeast, which is the nearest access to a roadway. And so by virtue of that, as drafted, the current easement agreement would prohibit us from making any changes to any part of not only the red highlighted parcel, but also that entire parcel to the southeast. That would prohibit me from ever building a home without permission. That would prohibit me from ever even planting a tree on what is, I would consider, a conservation tract of land. We've attempted to have that easement agreement modified, and it was not something we were able to accomplish with Summit or their land consulting group.
Okay, why don't you walk us through then the first email attachment?
Sure. So the first email attachment, Nanette Blevins. When I finally got information that I had requested, which included a cross-section, an understanding of how they were going to access the parcel and how they were going to lay the pipeline, which was a boring, understanding that they would no longer need an actual access easement, we suggested a number of changes in Exhibit C that would address our concerns. It also included changes to indemnity language, insurance language, as well as a number of other provisions that would make this easement agreement a bit more palatable for us. And none of those, okay, you've got these other emails up now. Yeah, which email are we on here? Can we scroll up? Okay. Okay.
Is this in the order that you want to address them? Is
yes,
this number
no,
two?
This is great. Yeah. Yeah, sorry, I didn't know we had those loaded up here. Okay. This addresses.
Hold on.
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, are these the copies that are being currently made? I don't think any of us out here have it. We may be able to blow this up enough to see it, but I just wanted to make sure that these are currently being copied and will be handed out shortly.
Okay. Because he's taking notes on them, we're going to print what we have and hand those out. Go ahead, Mr. Whitcomb.
So this first, we scroll down a bit. Okay. This first email is an email chain between me and the first contact we were assigned at Contract Land Staff, that being Richard Richardson. It's a string that started after we received a 10-day notice, survey notice, which we received several months after countless calls, requests to surveys, each of which was denied unilaterally by all landowners and family members here. Once I received the 10-day service notice or survey notice, I called Richard. I left a voice message, which was not returned. So then I subsequently emailed Richard and requested very specific information regarding the survey, the proposed surveys that you can see here. I also wanted to know specific information so that we could be comfortable that this third-party company that is not on the permit, to my knowledge, for the pipeline was actually an agent of Summit and that they were acting on their behalf. I wanted to be comfortable that we had a group that was insured and that was supposed to be on our site. I made a request. You can see by scrolling down. I made the email request 3 times, none of which was ever addressed. Each email was ignored. I never received a phone call to address any of my requests. Each of them was ignored. You'll see on the, I believe, the 3rd email, I then included the info email address at summitcarbon.com. That was also ignored. I did not receive any of the information requested from Richard Richardson or from anyone else at Summit Carbon. All right. Go ahead. All right. If we can pull up the next email. Okay. This email here, I appear to have been blind carbon copied on. It's an email from Richard Richardson, who, as we just noted, ignored my prior request for very specific information, which I feel is very relevant to the matter at hand and what they were looking to accomplish here. And this email appears to be to Bruce. You can see here they put our tract as a tract that was going to require security in the event of a survey. I'm not sure why I was blind carbon copied. I suspect it was an intimidation tactic. Regardless, I received no other correspondence from Richard Richardson or from anyone at Summit Carbon to any of my prior requests. If you scroll down, you can see further down the string the email that he forwarded to Bruce. Also, an interesting note worth pointing out, you can see my physical address there. I have provided that address that I have resided at for well over 10 years to several agents at contract land staff. However, any and all notices from contract land staff, from Summit Carbon, or from Summit Carbon's third-party legal counsel have all gone to alternative addresses, none of which have come to that address.
Can we scroll over the top of that real quickly, please? The whole document. Okay, and is that a third? Okay, so this is your second and third combined, or is there a third?
Yes, it is. Please scroll down. Sorry.
Okay, so just to clarify then, we've got two exhibits you would like to admit. The first being the email chain on July 31st from Chris Whitcomb to Nanette Bevins, and the second exhibit being the email chain. It appears to be.
There are two chains there. You are correct.
Okay,
They're combined.
And the second exhibit is the exhibit that at the top says forward 10-day survey notice tract Iowa KO 102 00075.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Are there any objections to? Okay, seeing none, they will be. Both exhibits will be admitted as Whitcomb hearing exhibits 1 and 2, respectively. Okay, so we have those admitted, and appreciate your information. Our questions for this component of it are to flesh out your desires, not necessarily on the negotiation process, but on what that easement would look like if a permit was granted. And so I want to kind of swing back to your property and have you kind of give us an idea of if a permit is granted, what that easement or what concerns you want to make sure are addressed in the record.
Sure. To be clear, the one attachment or the one exhibit has very specific changes that would address our concerns over the easement. In general, our issues are that they're proposing crossing the furthest tip of our property from the public roadway. So by virtue of that, while they've been very dismissive of the 1/10 of an acre of the proposed easement taking, by definition, with the proposed draft one-sided easement, it would include, for perpetuity, an easement across not only that entire red parcel, but the entire parcel to the southeast of it. That's our biggest concern. Outside of the fact that the proposed boring would potentially damage a number of mature trees. And I'm also concerned about any potential access across either of those parcels, both the highlighted one as well as the one to the southeast, and any potential damage to our CRP sections that we're enrolled in.
Okay. Thank you. I think you've hit all of my questions. I appreciate your exhibits. Do you, before we turn it over to the parties, did you want to add anything else or clarify anything?
Yeah, I do. I want to talk about an alternative route, which I believe is another one of your questions.
Yes, right? Absolutely.
Great. So I would like to propose that they move their proposed route, less than 100 feet? If that's Google Earth, maybe we can measure that. But if they were to move that route, which they propose to bore anyway, they would then be on the adjacent landowner's parcel, which is Dirk Hoover, who is a cooperating landowner and who has already signed an easement agreement with them. No, not that parcel. I'm talking about that parcel right here. So if we move this
You're
white
talking
line,
about the sliver just north and west of your property along the east bank of the East Fork of the Des Moines River right there.
yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry, we just have to get the descriptive words and the rest of it, so I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
So I'd like to propose that they move that route and they would completely eliminate any headwinds with our family over our tract and parcel of land. And they would have cooperation for a tenth of an acre or less from another landowner who, like I just said, has already cooperated with them and is working with them on a nearby parcel.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Any questions from the parties? Ms. Grunhagen?
Hi, Mr. Whitcomb. My name is,
Thank you.
my name is Chris Grunhagen, and I'm representing the Iowa Farm Bureau. So naturally, I have questions about your CRP ground that you have there. What are your concerns about damage to the CRP? Could you explain that a little bit more?
Unfortunately, I can't because the information that I've been provided has been pretty limited. And so I don't know exactly what they're proposing to do other than to bore. I don't understand how they intend to bore. I don't understand what equipment they'll still need to bring across our parcels to do that boring. I don't know is the short answer, unfortunately. And not for a lack of trying to understand either.
So with the CRP, since it's a little farther south on your parcel, would the concern be more about what kind of equipment they're going to be bringing across?
Yes,
Do you have a contract with FSA on your CRP?
we do.
And does that contract have requirements associated with it?
It does.
What kind of requirements, if you know?
Off the top of my head, weeding, and I believe primarily it's a weeding matter and making sure that we keep the weeds, noxious weeds, to a certain level.
Are you required to keep vegetation on that CRP ground?
Yes, we are.
And if that vegetation got destroyed, do you know what happens with FSA at that point?
I do not know what an event of a default would be. I would presume it would be forfeiture of certain monies and maybe even additional penalties.
And so if FSA determined you violated the contract terms, would you expect Summit then, or request that Summit reimburse you for any penalties that may get assessed?
Of course. And in fairness, they included in their rider and their exhibit some canned language regarding that. The issue with that canned language is it's very vague and one-sided. And given the limited response we've gotten from them on these other matters and their contract land staff who will be gone by then, I have little hopes that we'll be able to proactively recoup any additional cost or expenses we incur.
So what I'm hearing you say is when the board approves the easement language, if they approve the permit, you would like that language to be very specific about being reimbursed for any penalties assessed on your CRP contract.
Yeah, I would like not to have an easement and for us not to have a pipeline, to be clear.
Understand?
Yes.
I'm just asking, in the event it is approved, would you like some protections in that regard?
In the event it is approved, I would like not only to have language protecting us in that regards, I would like to have surety that there is financial wherewithal and a very clear process in making that claim and getting that collected.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from parties? Board Member Burns?
So, thank you for being here. what would be, so you provided us as an alternative route, basically said, move it onto the parcel on which they've already agreed. Is there access to that parcel from the other side that you're aware of? Maybe you're not aware.
Well, my understanding is they're going to bore from that other red parcel to the west, which I believe is a Wilden parcel. And so they shouldn't need access unless I was provided false or incorrect information. So they would bore under from that parcel and then come up on another parcel, that being Dirk Hoover, who also owns that parcel to the northwest of our parcel. So they shouldn't need access, is my understanding, other than possibly to guide the bore. But there again, I don't have anything in writing, so I can't confidently say that's what it will come to. I would like to think if they have access across Dirk's parcel, Dirk Hoover, already on a larger parcel, they could cross and access from that direction.
So have you had an easement presented to you with an offer?
I did.
Did you make any sort of counter proposal or ask for the alternative route?
Yes, I did ask for an alternative route.
And the alternative route you shared with us this morning, is that the same that you provided?
No, I simply asked for an alternative route, and I was denied. I was instructed that that was not a possibility.
Was it face-to-face communication on this easement, or was it?
No.
I know you had problems communicating with your exhibits over the phone. Okay. And who was the individual you worked with on that?
On that request, it was, I want to say it, Jessica. Mazur, I want to say. Mazur.
Not with Summit.
With contract land staff. I had never had any contact directly with anyone from Summit, unfortunately.
So there could maybe be more than one person?
Well, we've had 4 different people we've corresponded with. Sorry, wrong Jessica.
Okay. Can you expand on and clarify which Jessica you're talking about?
Yes, sir. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I'm getting... Sorry, there's been a number of them. I'm sorry. It's Chelsea Mezera. CHELSI MEZERA.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yes, sir. Sorry about that.
Nope, that's fine. Spelling that out. That makes sense.
So I did ask to be removed from the route. At that point, I don't know that Mr. Hoover was a cooperating or consenting landowner.
I don't believe I have any other questions. Thank you for your clarifications.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Whitcomb. We appreciate it. You're excused.
No other questions?
No. Thank you.
Your Honor, I have a question before the witness leaves. When you there too. His last email with the attachment, was that entered as a hearing exhibit?
Yes. Yeah.
And was that hearing exhibit 3?
2. The second and the third were combined.
Okay, but got it. Thank you.
Yep, no problem. Thank you.